It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon in the Pinewood Estates neighborhood when Karen Mitchell, the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA, decided to take matters into her own hands. Armed with her master key and a clipboard full of complaints, she marched up to David Reynolds' front door, ready to confront him about an unapproved mailbox color. But when her key failed to turn the lock, Karen's indignation boiled over, leading her to dial 911, unaware that David's son, Ethan, was the dispatcher on the other end of the line, listening to her unravel in real time. David Reynolds had lived in Pinewood Estates for nearly a decade. He was a widower in his late 50s, a retired high school history teacher who kept to himself. His modest two-story home was tidy, with a well-maintained lawn and a single, slightly faded lawn chair on the porch. David wasn't one for neighborhood drama. He paid his HOA dues on time, mowed his lawn every Saturday, and never left his trash cans out past pickup day. But none of that seemed to matter to Karen Mitchell, the HOA president who had a reputation for spotting violations from a mile away. Karen, a wiry woman in her early 60s with a perm that hadn't changed since the 80s, had been running the Pinewood Estates HOA with an iron grip for years. She carried a laminated badge with her title, President, Pinewood Estates Homeowners Association, clipped to her cardigan at all times. Her master key, which granted access to every home in the neighborhood for emergencies, was her scepter. She used it sparingly, but with a sense of divine authority, always claiming it was for the greater good of the community. Over the years, she'd used it to check on suspicious homes when owners were away, citing vague bylaws about property maintenance. Most residents grumbled but complied, too tired to challenge her. David, however, was different. He'd clashed with Karen before, small things, like the time she fined him for planting tulips instead of the HOA-approved marigolds. He'd paid the fine but made it clear he thought the rules were absurd. Last month, when Karen sent a letter about his mailbox, painted a muted forest green instead of the regulation navy blue, David ignored it. He wasn't about to repaint a perfectly good mailbox over a color nobody else noticed. That decision, it turned out, was the spark that led to Karen's meltdown. On that Tuesday, Karen had been patrolling the neighborhood, her clipboard scribbled with notes about minor infractions, a slightly overgrown hedge here, a car parked an inch too close to a fire hydrant there. When she reached David's house, she noticed the offending mailbox immediately. It stood out like a sore thumb in her meticulously curated vision of Pinewood Estates. She'd sent 3 letters already, each more strongly worded than the last, and David hadn't responded. Enough was enough. She decided to pay him a visit, master key in hand, to inspect his property and remind him who was in charge. Karen knocked on David's door at 2:47 p.m. No answer. She knocked again, louder, her lips pursed in annoyance. David was home, but he was in the backyard, tending to his vegetable garden, oblivious to her presence. Frustrated, Karen pulled out her master key, a shiny brass relic she kept on a lanyard around her neck. She inserted it into the lock, turned it, and nothing. The key didn't budge. She jiggled it, twisted harder, and even gave the door a little kick, but the lock held firm. Unbeknownst to Karen, David had changed his locks 6 months earlier after a neighbor warned him about her unannounced inspections. He hadn't bothered to inform the HOA, knowing it would only stir up trouble. Karen's face flushed red. This was an affront, a direct challenge to her authority. She wasn't just the HOA president. She was the gatekeeper of order in Pinewood Estates. If one resident could defy her, others might follow. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling with righteous anger. 911, what's your emergency? Came the calm, professional voice on the other end. It was Ethan Reynolds, David's 24-year-old son, who worked as a dispatcher for the county emergency services. Ethan had grown up hearing stories about Karen's antics from his father, but he'd never dealt with her directly, until now. This is Karen Mitchell, president of the Pinewood Estates Homeowners Association, she began, her tone clipped and official. I'm reporting a serious issue at 1427 Maple Drive. The resident, David Reynolds, has illegally changed his locks, preventing me from accessing his property for a mandatory HOA inspection. This is a violation of our bylaws, and I need an officer here immediately to enforce compliance. Ethan paused, recognizing the address instantly. It was his childhood home. He leaned back in his chair at the dispatch center, stifling a chuckle. "Ma'am, can you clarify the nature of the emergency?" he asked, keeping his voice neutral. "The emergency," Karen snapped, "is that this resident is obstructing my duties as HOA president. I have a master key to all properties in this neighborhood, and his lock is not working. This is a safety concern. He could be hiding something, code violations, unauthorized modifications, anything. I need police assistance to gain entry and ensure compliance." Ethan scribbled a note, his mind racing. He knew his father wasn't hiding anything. David was probably just grilling zucchini from his garden or reading a biography on the couch. But Karen's call was escalating quickly, and Ethan had to follow protocol. "Ma'am, just to confirm, you're saying you're trying to enter a private residence without the owner's consent because your key doesn't work?" "Exactly," Karen said, her voice rising. "This is a gated community, and I have authority under the HOA bylaws. This man is in direct violation, and I won't stand for it. Send someone now." Ethan marked the call as a non-emergency, but dispatched an officer to de-escalate. He also sent a quick text to his father. "Heads up, Dad. Karen's at your door, freaking out. Cops on the way. Call me." He didn't mention that he was the one taking her call. Better to keep that quiet for now. Back at the house, David's phone buzzed in his pocket. He wiped dirt from his hands and read Ethan's text, his eyebrows shooting up. He walked to the front of the house just as Karen was pacing on his porch, still clutching her clipboard. "Karen, what's going on?" he called out, keeping his tone even. She whirled around, pointing an accusatory finger. "You changed your locks, David. That's against the rules. I have every right to inspect this property, and you're obstructing me." David crossed his arms, leaning against the porch railing. "Karen, I changed my locks for security. I don't recall any bylaw saying I have to give you a key to my house. You're not the landlord." "It's in the covenant," she shouted, waving her clipboard. Section 4, Paragraph 3. All residents must provide access for HOA inspections. David shook his head. "I've read the covenant. It says you can request access with notice, not barge in whenever you feel like it. And this is about my mailbox, isn't it? It's green, Karen. Get over it." Before Karen could respond, a police cruiser pulled up. Officer Maria Delgado, a seasoned cop with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped out. She dealt with HOA disputes before and wasn't thrilled to be here. "What's the issue?" she asked, looking between Karen's flushed face and David's calm stance. Karen launched into her tirade, repeating her claims about the master key and David's noncompliance. David waited patiently, then explained his side. He changed the locks for privacy, hadn't been notified of any inspection, and didn't see why his mailbox warranted a 911 call. Officer Delgado listened, her expression neutral but her eyes betraying a hint of exasperation. "Ma'am," she said to Karen, "an HOA bylaw isn't the same as a law. You can't demand entry to someone's home without their consent or a court order. And calling 911 over a mailbox dispute isn't appropriate. This is a civil matter." Karen's jaw dropped. "But I'm the HOA president. I have authority not to break into someone's house," Delgado said firmly. "If you have an issue, take it up through your HOA's mediation process or a lawyer. I'm not forcing entry over this." Karen sputtered, clutching her lanyard like a lifeline. David, meanwhile, offered Delgado a polite nod. "Thanks for clearing this up, officer. I'll repaint the mailbox if it's that serious, but I'd appreciate it if Karen stops trying to unlock my door." Delgado advised Karen to file a formal complaint through proper channels and warned her against misusing 911 again. As she drove off, Karen stormed back to her house, muttering about taking this to the board. David called Ethan, who was still at the dispatch center, grinning ear to ear. "You should have heard her, Dad," Ethan said, keeping his voice low so his coworkers wouldn't overhear. "She was going on about her authority, like she's the mayor. I almost told her I was your son, but I figured that'd make it worse." David laughed, a rare sound these days. Good call. She'd probably try to fine you for working the emergency line. Word of the incident spread through Pinewood Estates like wildfire. By the next HOA meeting, Karen's master key privileges were a hot topic. Several residents, emboldened by David's stand, questioned why she even had a key to their homes. The board, sensing a revolt, voted to revoke the master key policy entirely, requiring written consent for any future inspections. Karen resigned as president a month later, claiming personal reasons, though neighbors whispered she couldn't handle the loss of control. David repainted his mailbox navy blue, but not before hosting a barbecue where he jokingly displayed the green one as a trophy. Ethan stopped by, still chuckling about the 911 call he'd never let Karen live down. For the first time in years, Pinewood Estates felt a little less like Karen's kingdom and a little more like a neighborhood.